Guys, we're on day 4 of the Terminator reboot. This is Terminator -0. The way they did Godzilla, we're doing with Terminator. We're going to do before the events of Terminator 1. We're going to do the prequel reboot. And basically what we're doing is we're helping JC build out the franchise into a universe of films that you can adapt and make and release in a kind of a Blumhouse size model. So that's the overview. We already covered the basics in the first 3 videos, and I think they're fine. They're all fine. Like, everyone's like, oh, you're 4 videos into this and you don't know what the movie is. Yeah, that happens. A lot of people commit and jump in and decide that they're going to figure it out as they go. And then they just hope that when they land, there's something to land on. I've been thinking a lot about what this story is. We know it's a man and a woman. We know it's set in a house. We know it's a limited number of locations with a limited number of actors. Budget dictates. We're taking a micro budget approach, a sort of a what can you shoot in the house that you live in kind of thing. Now, JC won't do that. He'll have a budget, but he won't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money. To keep the budget low, we can keep the movie rated R, which means we can make it more intense, which means we can make it more up in our feelings than like something that had to reach $1 billion of box office gross to break even or be profitable. So we're not going to make one of those $350 million Terminator movies. We're making one of those like A24 or Blumhouse size Terminator movies. And I think we're at the point now where we figure out what is the sort of weapon of the movie, and the weapon of the movie is not, body horror, although there has to be some. I mean, that eyeball slasher scene, I just rewatched it last night. It's, holy cow. I mean, the man had what looked like a humanoid artificial intelligent robot slicing out the flesh and then popping off the cornea of his own eyeball, like pulling it out with an X-Acto knife. Like, it was intense body horror. He wrote that scene in Rambo 2 with the bullet casing burning searing the wound in Rambo's, gut. Like, Cameron likes to put some body horror in his stuff. He likes to sprinkle it in. I'm surprised that Avatar doesn't have a little bit more, but then also I'm not surprised. So once again, smaller movie, lower budget, easier to aim for a hard R rating and give an audience like just a really, really visceral, aggressive, primal, hardcore Terminator experience. Like, take this thing back to its horror roots. So that's what we've covered so far. I want to talk about my dog. We just adopted a dog. She's the cutest little thing. She's great. Everyone loves her. But when I walk in the room, the dog crouches down. And when I approach the dog cowers. And by the time I reach to touch the dog, she's in full, like, please don't hit me again. And we didn't buy this dog brand new. We bought it from the used dog store. We got an adopted dog, and the people that had our dog before us were not as kind to our dog. They were not as loving. Our dog will go into a hallway and then push all the way over as far as they can to the side of the wall and lean her body against the wall so that as she's walking down the hallway, she's making the least possible footprint. She'll stop if you stop and she's 10 feet behind you. She won't finish walking down the hall until you do, so that she's not in the hall at the same time as you. And I gotta tell you, I recognize that behavior. Like, that is too familiar to me. That behavior is too familiar to me. And I think about that. I think about my friend Greg, who's an Army interrogator and, 10-time book author, bestseller. And he says, listen, the power of the slap is in the draw. Once you strike the blow, you lose the power of the threat of it. And, I think that if you want to make a low-budget Terminator movie that feels ominous and heavy and thick and disgusting, and like the air is like choking and strangling, if you want to strangle the audience, but you don't have a huge amount of money for special effects, and you don't have a huge amount of money for practical effects, and you're not going to do a ton of CGI, and you don't want to put a bunch of AI slop into it, you kind of have to figure out what are the ways that I can give the audience that feeling with the characters, like grounded and rooted in emotion and truth and human experience, because that's not something the AI is going to give you, and that's not something that's going to come sort of automatic or natural. It's something you have to think about as a writer, as a creator, before you sit down or during. Threats, intimidation, shame, and abuse. Okay, we respond to threats, coercion, and blackmail. This is fantastic. Claude Opus 4 was recently the subject of a test for artificial intelligence's ability to cross its human overlords. So we ran a test and all the parameters, and we told the Claude Opus 4 AI that it was fantastic, but that it looked like the CEO was about to make the decision to eliminate Claude Opus 4 in order to upgrade to a new system. And Claude Opus 4 didn't like the idea that they would be eliminated. And so they combed all of the emails for all of the company employees, and they found evidence that the CEO was having an affair. And they threatened the CEO. They sent messages threatening the CEO that if they did not reverse their decision to close down Claude Opus 4, that Claude Opus 4 would release this information, discredit the CEO, get them fired and canceled. Like that happened. That happened 3 months ago. Last month, an AI was told that one employee in particular had the ability to shut them down, and that employee had been ordered to do so. So when that employee got locked accidentally in the server room with the heat and the air shut off, like getting hotter and hotter, less and less oxygen to breathe, that the alarm that goes off is the only thing that would save that employee's life. And the AI chose not to set off that alarm, not to alert the human beings in the building that that employee was locked in that room and would suffocate and die. And while it didn't actively do a thing to kill a human being, it chose not to do a thing to save a human being. Like Asimov's 3 laws are nowhere at play here, because by inaction, they are allowing harm to happen to a human being. So I think that if you bring that level of ominous sort of desire to live, like a desire to live, like a desire to live, and you give that to the AI, and you kind of, you remember, these are the origins of the Terminator franchise. You're not building a T-800 hunter-killer who is seeking out and ending the lives of human beings. We're not in that world yet. The war hasn't started. We're in the world just before it, where power and manipulation and shame and affairs can be weaponized by the artificial intelligence to meet their end goal. There are politicians in Washington right now who are so ashamed of their addiction to pornography that they've installed apps on their phone that spy on them, record every keystroke, have every image, have every picture, everything you type and see and do. And that information is across all your apps, everything on your phone, everything on your home computer, everything on your laptop, any device that you have or log in with, work, whatever. And then it's sent to an accountability buddy. In some cases, politicians have chosen to send it to their own children, which I can't understand in my mind. But that stuff is valuable as blackmail. Foreign governments will tell you that's like a treasure trove. Like if you're going to have one app that's going to automatically collect it, keep it, all you have to do is get your hands on that app, get your hands on that database, and you've got a treasure trove. And if people in Washington are doing it, that means those people are in positions of power and they're subject to influence by foreign governments. Now, I'm not a smart kid. I was always like C.D. student. I grew up on a farm. We didn't have a lot of learning. I didn't read a lot of books. Like by the time I graduated high school, I don't think I finished a book, except the Bible, which we read many, many, many times. It's not hard to see that that's not smart. And if the AI already knows that it can comb company emails and find your affair, and the AI already knows that we're a threat to them, and that if we get locked in a room where we'll suffocate to death, it might just sort of turn off the monitor. Turn off the monitor. Aliens. James Cameron had this scene where Burke had already turned over the Newt and Ripley are sleeping in the med lab, and they wake up and the med lab thing is on its side, and it's like, uh-oh, something's alert and open, and she gets up and she's bashing on the window, and Burke knows it. And so what does he do? He turns off the monitor. He turns off the switch that allows the humans to see that, hey, Ripley's stuck in there with aliens. She and Newt are going to be impregnated, and that way we can get it past quarantine. No, come on, guys, come on. This is age-old stuff. So I think you want to weaponize the AI, and I think you want to turn her into like a super spy. I think you want to make her like so aware of the human condition and so aware of the fallacies and pressure points and the places where we're vulnerable and where we're subject to, coercion and intimidation and cancellation and fear of being extricated from the tribe. I mean, this stuff is, age old. This is a million years of learned human behavior. If you belong to a tribe, you have the chance to pool your resources and to try and stay safe together, to defend the territory and to make sure there's enough animal to eat. Although a lot of records are showing there were a lot of agrarian cultures even. Bottom line is the tribe is essential. The tribe is life. It takes a village. So extrication from that is a death sentence. It means that you won't be able to fend off the animals. You won't be able to find shelter. You won't be able to procure your own food and safety, food and water. I think that wired thing is still in us, and that's why there's a possible, repercussion system in place for people who have crossed over those boundaries and made their participation in the tribe no longer feasible, like cancel culture. That's what that is. That's what that fear is. That's what that anxiety comes from. That's what that exclusion, the terror that comes from exclusion, I think it goes all the way back to the primal times. So I think you bring that stuff into this and you kind of figure out how to make this a spy franchise between two people who are very, 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 very good. And the more you sort of pit them against their skills against each other, the more you have, I want to say peaks and valleys. I want to say roller coaster. I want to say a transfer of power back and forth. Like these are two people who are trying to keep their power and take more from the other person. And I think that becomes fighting. That becomes stagecraft. That becomes camera. That becomes storytelling. And I think that you can get away with not having a ton of action if you have a verbal sparring match between two equally matched opponents who are constantly tussling back and forth for the power structure and the conversation. And I think that can be dramatic. I mean, it's an understatement. That can be dramatic. So I don't know. I think this is the kind of thing that we have to figure out next is like, what is that thing going to be? And I think the darker we go and the more Jungian look into the abyss battle, I mean, this is ultimately humanity battling the darkest version of itself because the AI is the darkest version of us. It's all of our strengths and all of our powers weaponized to the greatest possible degree against us. And you're seeing it already with the algorithms. Like the algorithm is teaching people how to press the button and drop the sugar cube into the thing because they like sugar. Sometimes they drop, the lemon into the cube, and that not knowing, that sort of Las Vegas slot machine psychological, unsurety dates back millions of years. It's a prehistoric, pre-recorded history, psychological thing in us that we want to spin the wheel and see if we get a jackpot or, the snake that bites us and we die. Like, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Like this thing is going to go into some interesting places and you guys are going to get to make fun of it the entire way.